Commanding General Yohana, is America on the brink of World War III? Join us for a real discussion about America's future.
For God's justice to be right in the earth, this entire country has to be devastated in nuclear war.
Is the Third World War coming, and what does this mean for black and brown people? You don't want to miss it. It's July 28th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. 1522 South Wabash Ave, Chicago, Illinois. Be there.
That's right. I was a young man 35 years ago, and they said Russia would turn on America after it came together with America.
This is, man, the last safe haven for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You don't want to miss out, and it's $30 to get in. Also, we will be having a lecture party, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then we're going to be having an after party, to be announced, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. For any more information, contact 708-506-5738. 708-506-5738. Commanding General Yohana, is America on the brink of World War III? Join us for a real discussion about America's future.
For God's justice to be right in the earth, this entire country has to be devastated in nuclear war.
Is the Third World War coming, and what does this mean for black and brown people? You don't want to miss it. It's July 28th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. 1522 South Wabash Ave, Chicago, Illinois. Be there.
That's right. I was a young man 35 years ago, and they said Russia would turn on America after it came together with America.
This is, man, the last safe haven for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You don't want to miss out, and it's $30 to get in. Also, we will be having a lecture party, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then we're going to be having an after party, to be announced, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. For any more information, contact 708-506-5738. 708-506-5738.
Commanding General Yohana will be doing the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles in King James Castle. Finally, the truth about King James, a black man who helped to preserve and safeguard the Bible. Live September 29th, 2023. Commanding General Yohana, live at King James Castle in Scotland. Come on down and support the ISUPK UK. Lift the glass, come and join the brotherhood and drink with the ancient as we celebrate and keep the Feast of Tabernacles for our King Yahushua in King James Castle, bringing his crew of heavy hitters. Commanding General Yohana will put 12 chill General Muhammad scripture breakdown class up against anyone, against any biblical scholar, untested, unchallenged, ISUPK, undefeated. Leviticus chapter 23, the Feast of Tabernacles in a black man's castle, hosted in Scotland. the United Kingdom, UK. Commanding General Yohana will be doing the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles in King James Castle, Thursday, September 28th, Scripture Breakdown class. Friday, September 29th, there will be a King James Castle tour, also a Johnny Walker Distillery tour, and Friday night, the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles. Saturday, September 30th, we will have camp on the streets of England. Sunday, October 1st, the UK Cookout. Monday, October 2nd, the Warwickshire Castle Tour. ISUPK under commanding General Yohana at King James Castle in England. This is an absolutely monumental, historical event. Want
us to stop. But man, don't we deserve a shot? Don't we deserve a shot to be the Lord's people? Israel, let's do it!
Commanding General Yohana will be doing the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles in King James Castle. Finally, the truth about King James, a black man who helped to preserve and safeguard the Bible. Live, September 29th, 2023. Commanding General Yohana live at King James Castle in Scotland. Come on down and support the ISUPK UK. Lift the glass, come and join the brotherhood and drink with the ancient as we celebrate and keep the Feast of Tabernacles for our King Yahushua in King James Castle, bringing his crew of heavy hitters. Commanding General Yohana will put 12 shield General Mahaiman scripture breakdown class up against anyone, against any biblical scholar, untested, unchallenged, ISUPK undefeated. Leviticus chapter 23, the Feast of Tabernacles in a black man's castle, hosted in Scotland, the United Kingdom, UK. Commanding General Yohana will be doing the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles in King James Castle, Thursday, September 28th, Scripture Breakdown class. Friday, September 29th, there will be a King James Castle tour, also a Johnny Walker Distillery tour, and Friday night, the opening of the Feast of Tabernacles. Saturday, September 30th, we will have camp on the streets of England. Sunday, October 1st, the UK Cookout. Monday, October 2nd, the Warwickshire Castle Tour. ISUPK under commanding General Yohana at King James Castle in England. This is an absolutely monumental, historical event. Want
us to stop. But man, don't we deserve a shot? Don't we deserve a shot to be the Lord's people? Israel, let's do it!
Commanding General Yohana is America on the brink of World War III. Join us for a real discussion about America's future.
For God's justice to be right in the earth, this entire country has to be devastated in nuclear war.
It's the Third World War coming, and what does this mean for black and brown people? You don't want to miss it. It's July 28th, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. 1522 South Wabash Ave, Chicago, Illinois. Be there.
That's right. I was a young man 35 years ago, and they said Russia would turn on America after it came together with America.
This is, man, the last safe haven for blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You don't want to miss out, and it's $30 to get in. Also, we will be having a lecture party, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then we're going to be having an after party, to be announced, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. For any more information, contact 708-506-5738. 708-506-5738.
Y'all should not put much on track. Wednesday night scripture breakdown, rocking it off from DC. You all know this week is a big week, Chicago cookout fire weekend. Give that a hand. Right? That's doing that lecture from Chicago on World War III. World War III. Listen, for those of y'all who heading down to Chicago this weekend, that lecture is going to be held at the Chicago School, 9909 Roosevelt Road, Westchester, Illinois. Westchester, Illinois. General is bringing it into the hometown for you, making it easier access. I know the commercial before advertising another location. We apologize for the inconvenience, but that lecture that Commander General Hannah going to do is going to be done right at Chicago School, right at home for everybody who is familiar with the whole zone. 9909 Roosevelt Road, Westchester, Illinois. Of course, if you have any more questions, contact the Chicago School, contact your camp leader, and get plugged in with the whole thing. All right. Yeah, camp going on Friday. I believe tomorrow is Asking the Prophets of Jeremiah kicking off. Of course, Jeremiah Hyman is doing scripture breakdown class. From Chicago tomorrow. I believe Cross the Line is also from Chicago tomorrow. You know what I mean? And Saturday is that Bantu Festival. You know what I mean? The meat market, if you know what I'm talking about. Right? Not the shambles, but the meat market. And Sunday is the Midwest Fire Weekend Cookout live there in Chicago. Make your way down. You know what I mean? It ain't too late. You can still get together and rock it out.
Oh, okay.
All right. So tonight we're going into a little bit of perspective on America's home on terrorism. All right. Everybody, America, they like to act like they're always the victim of something, and somebody's always trying to attack them. When on closer inspection, you realize they attack themselves so much because, of course, our oppressor, he's just violent by nature. He can't get along with anyone, and which is the reason why we should totally separate from it. All right. Let me know if there's any questions in the class, any questions in the chat.
Okay.
All right. And we'll deal with those. It's also the scripture breakdown and / law class. If you have any questions, for sure, let's get them. If not, we definitely gonna rock into the whole topic. All right.
Okay.
Make sure you'll get down there and check out Commander General Hannah lecture. Is World War III imminent? Is World War III imminent? He gonna break the whole thing down for you, give you the whole proof. You know what I mean? School you up, make you understand what's really going on, and give you the biblical proof, historical and biblical proof of the whole thing and why it's right around the corner, why we should now separate from this kingdom and come into the truth, come into the service of the Lord, because what's getting ready to happen to this place is going to be biblical. The Bible says it's going to be the new Egypt in terms of what the Lord did to Egypt. Everybody hears about what he did to Egypt, but it's going to be a new record. Like, we ain't going to talk about Egypt no more. But now we're going to talk about how he removed us from the days of from the land of the north.
Right.
All right. So make sure you get down there, check out that lecture. I believe it's streaming on some platform. It's called Chicago Code Camp Leader. Right. I think it's a $10 entry fee. Yeah, I think online too you can get the stream. I'm verified. I'm verified for sure for you.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Any questions at all?
I don't see any questions online. So just check-ins from the brothers and sisters, but no questions online, sir.
No, sir. If you have any questions, you'll type it in and play it in. All right. So, of course, everybody understands terrorism since September 11, 2001. The whole concept or the whole understanding of terrorism, I don't want to say has been warped or changed. I would say it has been heightened. There's been a heightened sense of alertness when it comes to the terrorism that's that people have experienced in America, or the whole concept of it, right? The whole concept of it. So somebody pull for me real quick the definition of terrorism.
Okay.
Right? Terror and terrorism. Let's go with that there first.
Okay.
Let me get that. The definition of terror and terrorism.
I'm gonna get terrorism, sir. The definition of terrorism from Merriam-Webster.
So that StreamYard link, send it to Sawapia as well, right? You can send it to him, I think, either Facebook Messenger. Make sure he gets it, all right?
Sir.
Anybody else who may want to jump in?
He said Officer Sawap, sir.
Officer Sawap, yeah. I'm sure that.
Sir.
I think he usually gets it when he needs to. Anybody else have it? Why the brother doing it? Go ahead.
I got the word terror.
Go ahead.
Terror.
Mm-hmm.
In the Merriam-Webster dictionary, or intense or overwhelming fear.
Right. A state of
intense or overwhelming fear.
Right. Terror is a state of intense or overwhelming fear. Some people describe it as crippling fear. The crippling type of fear, some way you can't think straight. You can't. In some cases, you can't physically move because you're so scared. Right? People talk about fight or flight, but sometimes there's a terror where you want to run and you can't do nothing. You want to fight and you can't do anything. You're paralyzed by fear. Go ahead.
So, like I said, I was on a roller coaster the other day, and when we got off,
what do you have to do on a roller coaster now? You must have had a boring day. You must have, I need to go live. Go ahead.
It's like the dude in front of me was like, I caught a cramp. I was like, you shouldn't hold on so tight. He was saying he was only terrified the whole
ride. That shit. Just hold on so tight. I don't know what the hell you're doing on the roller coasters at this stage in your career. Yeah, I mean that. You're great. I got top feeling like nuts on boats. That's too many of them rides. Just fall the hell over. I want to say the ground. Thank you. I go up in a plane though, but that other thing there, no, we ain't dealing with that. Right? Terror, intense fear. Right? Give me terrorism. You got it. Go ahead.
Terrorism, the unlawful use of violence.
Say it again.
The unlawful use of violence.
Right. No. So terrorism. The first thing, terror is an adjective. Is describing a certain feeling that you get, which is intense fear. Right? Intense fear. What does it say again, Shapat? Intense fear or something?
Intense or overwhelming fear.
Intense or overwhelming fear. Like this thing is just all over you. You can't, you can't see your way. You can't think straight. You can't move straight. But terrorism is
the unlawful use of violence.
The unlawful use of violence. Go ahead.
And intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aim.
Right, in the pursuit of political aim. So now let's unpack that for a second, right? It said the unlawful use of violence, or what?
Sorry, the unlawful use of violence and intimidation.
Right? Against civilians for some sort of political goal or political aim, which lets you know what? There is a lawful use of violence against civilians.
Right.
Let's understand that part first. If terrorism is the unlawful use of violence, there must be a lawful use of violence for a political end goal, right? That's supposed to be usually the penalties for breaking a law. The penalties for breaking a law would usually come forward in the form of lawful violence. Whether you get snatched up and thrown in a cell, whether you get, you're found hanging at the end of a rope. I'm talking about in terms of after a judge done sentence you to death, execution, something like that, right? You trying to take the life or lives of some innocent person, and somebody else is there who is now intervening to defend the lives of people. That's lawful use of force or lawful use of violence, right?
Yes.
But of course, in that case, self-defense is not political, right? The other thing is political because why? In different countries, you have different death penalties for different offenses. Right? You got different uses of violence based on their political background, their agenda, what they believe in, right? So terrorism is the unlawful use of violence or intimidation on civilians for a political aim. Go ahead. Anything else? Okay. There's a little bit more. Find the definition where to give you a little bit more of it. That's definitely a good basic one. So really, the violence is meant to inspire what's in you. Terror, which is that fear we just read of. That fear that's crippling, that fear that's intense and overwhelming. And because of that intense, overwhelming fear, now you could be, corralled or coerced into some, action that somebody wants, right? Now, America has been a terror to Black, Hispanic, and Native or First Peoples for hundreds of years.
Right.
America has done extreme terrorism to Black, Native, or First Peoples for hundreds of years. However, America has never been called on it in the rooms where it matters.
Right.
Of course, we talk about our own injustices, but in the rooms where it matters, in Stockholm, Sweden, and where the Geneva Convention, in the United Nations, in the G8, the gathering of them great 8 nations, there's never a talk about war crimes or terrorism done by the American government on the civilians of a whole other country that they just happen to have within their country. It's never ever spoken about like that. They look at it as that was lawful violence against us, right? That's how they look at it. Like that was lawful violence against us. So now let's go back and see, let's try to understand the history of this thing in America, right? So now give me the definition for homeborn terrorism. Homeborn or homegrown terrorism or terrorist, right? Homeborn terrorism or homegrown terrorism or terrorist. All right, give me the definition for that or give me the explanation for that. All right. Let's say when you have it, please.
Okay.
Right? Homeborn terrorism or homegrown terrorist. Give me the definition for that. All right. Also, somebody else look up for me the outside of 9/11, what is the biggest act of terrorism on American soil?
A big part of is domestic terrorism.
I'll take that. Domestic terrorism. I'll take that.
Domestic terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
The unlawful use of violence or threats.
There that phrase go again. Unlawful use of violence. So there is a lawful use.
Right.
For for Christians who think everything is about peace.
Right.
Right. There is a lawful use of it, and it's perfectly fine and lawful. Right. But this one You was gonna say something?
No, not.
This one here is the unlawful use of violence. Go ahead.
Or threats against a country's civilian population or government.
Against a country's civilian population or government.
Right.
That's domestic terrorism. And of course, what was done to us will never be viewed as domestic terrorism because we are not that country's civilian population. They don't look at us as we say.
Right.
You understand? So we could talk about everything that was done to us for hundreds of years. As far as they're concerned, we will not recognize as people.
Right.
So they will never say, well, okay, yes, what was done to us was terrorism. Right? Building a cross on your front lawn, that was not to make you, that was not a welcome to the neighborhood. That was to inspire terror in you. That was to make you scared to sleep. You get the point? That was to make you scared to live there. It would start with stuff like that, then it would result in, it would escalate to vandalism, acts of vandalism on their property, and finally it would now escalate all the way through the roof to total physical harm with kidnappings, lynchings, lynch mobs, missing people, downright murder, right? But those tactics was meant to inspire terror in you, an absolute terrorism where you would now, the political agenda was for you to get to hell out of America. It's to make you so uncomfortable you would leave. Like this wouldn't be a place you want to be around. You would just leave. That was the end goal of it. Of course, the immediate goal was for you to leave whatever region you was in and to totally be separate. All right, anymore?
Go
ahead.
By an individual or group based and operating within the same country and without foreign direction, with the goal of furthering political.
Read that part again. By the same.
Within the same country and without foreign direction.
Read it again from the top.
The unlawful use of violence or threats against a country's civilian population or government by an individual or group based and operating within the same country and without foreign direction.
Right. So now that's what it's saying. It's done by an individual or group operating in the same country that they're doing the act in, without any directive by a foreign entity, be it an individual or government. Meaning you're not acting on behalf of somebody else. Right? Anymore?
With the goal of furthering political, social, or ideological objectives.
Right? So with the goal of enforcing social, political, or ideological objectives. Which means what? Okay, what would be the terrorism, unlawful violence that would promote a political objective? What would be that? What would be the unlawful violence that would promote a political objective?
The storming of the Capitol.
Thank you. Give me my hand. Walk straight to the point. I'm thinking about other stuff. You walk straight to the point. That there is terrorism to promote a political objective. What's the political objective? They want Trump in office. Right? And that was done by local people with local motives, with domestic influence. This wasn't done from somebody else arranging it. You get the point? On the conversely, you have historically, you remember when Egypt went through their government collapsing. This was a few years ago with the fall of the Arab Spring and the Arabic Brotherhood, the Islamic Brotherhood. You ever remember that? There was riots in the streets of Egypt a few years ago, and this was organized through Facebook. The whole thing was organized and mobilized by the youth of Egypt through Facebook. And that was not solely local, domestic. You get the point? That had outside influence because the youth now wanted to be what? More American. They wanted the freedoms of what America would have, and they wanted to go against the classic form of how they would grow, the classic form of the government, the traditional ways. They wanted to go against it. You get the point? And all that was inspired through Facebook. It was organized through Facebook, organized through the damn internet. That is totally different to what we're talking about here, right? That January 6th was an absolute act of terrorism. It was an absolute act of terrorism. It was an attempt to hold the government hostage, and by extension, the population of America hostage, so that they can now put in power who they want to put in power, when that's not how it's supposed to happen.
Right.
But of course, you have oppressors who would say that was not terrorism, that was people exercising their First Amendment rights, the right to protest, right? The right to, freedom of speech. They would say that, however, that's not what it was. Now, on the other side, you have oppressors who would agree that that was terrorism. You have oppressors who would say what they did crossed the line. It blurred the line of freedom of speech and the right to protest, right? They would say that was terrorism. Give me something else. Give me any more domestic? Go ahead.
I got I looked up homeborn, but it came up as homegrown terrorism.
I'll take that.
Homegrown terrorism, the committing of terrorist acts in the perpetrator's own country against their fellow citizens.
Say that one more time.
Homegrown terrorism, the committing of terrorist acts in the perpetrator's own country against their fellow citizens.
Right. Say that, brother. That's right. All right.
Perpetrators.
All right. So now, where's the So who looked up the outside of 9/11? Because 9/11 was terrorism, was domestic. That would be considered international terrorism, because of course the perpetrators were not American citizens, even though the act was done to inspire terror in American citizens. The influence was not from a domestic source. The influence was from outside. So now, what is give me the biggest act of terror on American soil?
I mean, Black Wall Street.
Historically, give me what you could prove.
The Oklahoma bombing.
That's what is written. You could look it up. Just look up the biggest act of domestic terrorism on American soil.
Oh, okay.
And they have it as that. Go ahead.
We talking about domestic terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
When they dropped the bombs on Philadelphia.
Well, that's not the biggest one. That's when I say the biggest one. I'm not talking about what we know as the biggest, right? Which is our slavery, which is Jim Crow, which is the Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood. You get the point? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what you can now go and battle some Republican, in the return somewhere with the facts that everybody could pull up and see. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm talking. What they have on paper as the biggest act of terrorism on American soil. What do you have?
I was gonna say that for me, just back in the day, the damn school shootings, we had mass shootings that we had in America.
You have the mass shootings, but those don't count as the biggest one.
They have to be domestic.
Yes. You found it? Anybody looked it up? Good God, you said it though.
Okay, kind of Oklahoma. Okay.
All right. Pull it up for me and give me a little background on.
Okay. I got the.
Let me know if you have any questions. All right.
Hold on, okay, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is through the Wikipedia. The Oklahoma City bombing.
Uh-huh.
The Oklahoma City bombing was a domestic terrorist truck bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, United States, on April the 19th, 1995. The second anniversary of Furry End of Waco Sage. That's all.
Hold on. Read it again from the top.
Come. The Oklahoma City bombing was a domestic terrorist truck bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, United States, on April 19th, 1995. The second anniversary of Furry End to the Waco Sage. Waco Sage. It was the deadliest act of terrorism.
Waco siege.
It's like
a siege, right? They describe it as a siege, like how you would siege a country or a castle. Like you siege it by basically cutting it off, surrounding it, and you're waiting them out. All right, that's a siege, right? Come on.
Oh, you got Officer Swab. You're all in the chat about to add them to the stream.
No, sir. Go ahead, Kevon.
Yes, minha baixão impactar.
Yeah, some shop there. What's going on now?
To absent.
So what know about domestic terrorism? Trinidad went through a coup in 1990, which is an overthrow of the government. It was done by a Trinidadian brother. However, it's domestic terrorism and just the action. The motive was from Muammar Gaddafi, right? It was from him because that brother, Abu Bakr, he's dead now. He had his men training in Libya and had a ton of support from Gaddafi, and he decided to overthrow the government. At that time for what he thought was good intention. However, that's an act of terrorism and it's domestic because of course it's to instill fear for a political agenda. All right, give me some more on the other one.
Come. It was the deadliest act of terrorism in the U.S. history until September 11th attacks.
Right. So according to their records, the Oklahoma bombing of that federal building was the deadliest act of terror on U.S. soil until September 11th. Right. And of course, they still see it as the deadliest domestic terrorist attack because September 11th they don't consider it domestic because it's outside influence. You get it going? But until September 11th, the greatest act of terror on American soil was committed by a white American male, ex-military soldier, right? A good old southern Texas white. I think it's Texas. No, I think he's from upstate New York, but he was living down with a good American white boy. He committed the biggest act of domestic terrorism on American soil until 9/11. Go ahead.
I remember this so vividly. I think I was in elementary school at the time, and my dad was reading the paper. And when he went to go execute the Edomite was so thorough. He just before they executed him, they said he nodded his head at the execution like farewell.
Hell yeah! Like he I'm not supporting them when I say hell yeah, but you do the research on this particular type and group. They have political agendas that run down near deep as their bloodline. And that's why how he went the way he went. And you'll see, in a little bit, we're going to bring up why he was like that all the way until the end. All right. So give me some, is anyone on the way on the bombing?
Let me, right now, okay.
We got it. We already have it on the board, but brother in the chat room, your Habada says Salak, sir. His name is Timothy McVeigh. He just jumped to the gun on it, but just given that one of the answers he had gave as well was that that he offered the attack on Pearl Harbor in World War II.
But Pearl Harbor wouldn't be domestic terrorism. That would just be an act of war.
Okay.
I mean that would just be a full-out act of war. Which again, we as a people, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native and First people, we can say America has done an act of war on us.
Right.
And we talk about the Philly move bombing, right? When it dropped bombs on or a bomb on that building in Philadelphia, that's an act of war. Tulsa, Oklahoma, act of war.
Right.
So either way, if you don't want to classify us as American citizens to not qualify for your people doing terrorism to us, then surely it's an act of war. If we're not your citizens, then we somebody else's, which means what you did to us was an absolute act of war.
Right.
All right. What do you have?
I got some more, sir.
Please.
Perpetrated by two anti-government extremists.
Right. Now that's what you got to look at first. This Oklahoma bombing was done by two anti-government extremists. Until this day, they said since 2016, since Trump came into office, these little white anti-government militia groups have damn near tripled in number and grown and become more vicious and more focused, right? Damn near, it's a blessing on our end because now you really for the most recent history, you're looking at us like we're the problem. But now you are forced to look at your own people. You are absolutely forced to look at your own people. And January 6th is the proof that you dropped the ball, that you're trying to have brotherhood for your people when you can't. you have to profile your people a lot harder. If you profile the people a lot harder, then how much it was 3 or 4 cops that got beat to death and then committed suicide after January 6th, that wouldn't have happened. If you had profiled the people harder. They use your planes, they use your roadways, they came to your capital, and you act like you knew nothing about it, when since 2016, the FBI has been recording the dramatic increase in these militia groups, these anti-government groups, these white supremacist groups. What you think was going to happen? Now let's see the history of it. Go ahead. So now this was done by 2 anti-government extremists. These was 2 white boys, right? And they planned and plotted this. I know for sure Timothy McVeigh was ex-military. I'm not sure if the other one was ex-military. Go ahead.
Perpetrated by 2 anti-government extremists and white supremacists, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. The bombing occurred at 9:02 a.m. and killed 168 people.
Right. Now they bombed this building in the morning and killed 167 people. I think injured like 80 something more, 200 more. How much more is it injured?
That's injured 680.
Damn, 680 more. See if you find a picture of the building.
Okay.
Right? You ever seen the Watergate Hotel downtown in DC, Northwest Pennsylvania? You see how it's shaped kind of like an arc? Imagine the whole hotel was there, and a bomb took the whole middle of it, and it's the arc. That's it. That's the Oklahoma. The Oklahoma bombing is that remainder of that thing that, once the middle was gone. See if you find a picture of it.
I got pictures.
Killed over 160 something people and injured 600 and something. So ridiculous amount. All right, who's free? Should I take that for the brother? And then go ahead and finish it.
So I get. I was talking about that top. Perpetrated by 2 anti-government extremists and white supremacists, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. The bombing occurred at 9:02 a.m. and killed 168 people, injured 680, and destroyed more than a third of the building.
Right, destroyed more than a third of the building. You was able to pull out a picture? All right. There's different shots, different angles of that thing. I mean, that's levels, brother. They brought Armageddon to Oklahoma. They brought the pain to Oklahoma, brother. And now in that building, I think either there was a children's hospital or some kind of child daycare. They killed a ton of kids up in there too. All right, go ahead.
Which had to be demolished.
Right, we couldn't be on TikTok tonight. There's too much killing and terrorism violence in 5 minutes. Right? They're saying because of structural damage of court, but of course they want to demolish and build the whole thing over to erase the memory of them being, that people. Go ahead.
The blast destroyed or damaged 324 other buildings.
Damn.
Within a 16-block radius.
Brother, they talk about the explosive devices they use. They rented one of them big old trucks, like a Penske truck. Them old big old Penske trucks, filled with barrels of this accept, and took out the whole building. And they said the shockwaves went through blocks of it. When you pulling me over, my broken tail is your biggest problem. Right. Go ahead.
Shattered glass in 258 buildings and destroyed 86 cars, causing an estimate of $652 million worth of damage.
But my broken tail is your problem.
Right.
You understand? Me driving in one state, but my plates is from another state. That's your biggest problem. Before you all did this, you need to profile your people more.
Right.
You need to do that. $600 and something million in damage, 100 and something people killed, over 600 people injured. And I'm the problem. You want to deport me?
Right.
Come on.
So we're gonna say the Edomites want to oppress the poor for like stealing on Christmas Day, but an Edomite, I think it was in Michigan with the RV, blew up a whole block just alone.
Block the whole block. There's one in Tennessee. Remember that was in Tennessee. By the camp spot in Tennessee. It was right there by that camp spot in Tennessee. He come down there with the RV and blow up the whole block because he's just angry. You need to profile your people more.
Right.
Right? And you're gonna see why. Give me some more.
Come. Local, state, federal, and worldwide agencies engage in intensive rescue efforts in wake of the bomb.
Okay. The Scanley article, does it tell you in there why he did what he did? That's what you need to understand. Right? You know, Timothy McVeigh, I think he was relatively young. I think he was in his early 20s. Like, this wasn't no, military veteran. He wasn't, he wasn't in there, commanding a huge brigade or nothing like that. I think this was a very young guy who, had a motive and decided he was going to destroy the lives of people. Right? Does it tell you anything down there? You might need to look for another article.
I just happen to know, just off of knowing the case.
Come on with it. Come on.
So like Timothy McVeigh was what they call Christian nationalists, and which are white supremacists. And he was staunchly against abortion. And so in his way of protest of allowing abortion, he went and killed a bunch of people. Like you said, sir, it was a daycare in that same building.
That building, okay, it was a federal building, but they had a daycare for all the federal workers.
Right.
That ain't the only reason he did it. Right? That's one reason they say, which is why this oppressor, he has started to pull over his own people more.
Right.
If he's concerned about homeland security, you need to pull over every oppressor with them glasses, every oppressor that look like Ted Bundy, that look like J.T. Holmes, that look like what's the one from Syracuse?
Peyton Gendron.
Oh, that look like Dahmer. Everyone that looks like them, even the I forget her name, the one that made the movie over, where she was a hitchhiker and she would just kill everybody she got right from. They made a movie about this girl, a white woman. She was the name of the movie was called Monster, right? She was an old trailer park trash type broad, and she would try to hitch ride from state to state, highway to highway, and she would just kill everybody up. Anybody who stopped to give her a ride, she'd go from one state to the next, and they end up dead. So
their name was Pippa Baka.
Maybe I don't
Pippa
know.
Baka or something.
That's what it says. Some devil that just look like you shouldn't stop. Go ahead.
I got the motive.
Go ahead.
The motive.
Give me the motive.
The chief conspirators, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, met in 1980.
The chief conspirators, meaning there was more. It's just these two who taking the fall,
right?
Because this was organized crime. This wasn't just let's show him something, Nichols.
Right.
You're right, Timothy. Let's go. This wasn't Google Power Rangers. This was organized crime, and they just take the fall for the squad. Right. Go ahead.
Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols met in 1988 at Fort Benning doing basic training for the U.S. Army.
So both of them was ex-military. Go ahead.
McVeigh met Michael Pointier as an Army roommate. The three shared interest in survivalism.
Right, that's in preppers. Right, that survivalism is talking about them preppers. Old preppy people. Preppers digging old bunkers in the ground. Learning to hunt. There's nothing wrong with learning to hunt. Nothing wrong with learning to live off the land.
Right.
But not for the reason they do. Right, go ahead.
McVeigh and Nichols were radicalized by white supremacists and anti-government propaganda.
Right, they were radicalized by white supremacists and anti-government propaganda, which is what is actually bringing up the Christian nationalists. Right, really white nationalists. That's really what they are. Not, they blow up that building in Jesus. That's white nationalists. That's what it was, and they existed at that time, and it was more. Not prevalent. There was a lot of them at that time, but because of the technology, it's not like now where everybody get a ping off your phone and this and that. The surveillance on them wasn't that vast.
Right.
So they was existing, and you just wouldn't know until something like this happened.
Right.
Go ahead.
Like so, comment online, Brother Yaquatas or Yahabada says, Salagi, sir, Timothy McVeigh was also reading a white supremacy book based on Adolf Hitler called Turn or something.
They all read Hitler books. Right. All of them. Any white supremacists, any white nationalists, they all read Mein Kampf, the term something, they all read those, you know, white supremacy, pure reads those Art of War. They all read them, all of them. That's their, you know, that's their capital.
They expressed anger at the federal government's handling of the 1992 Federal Bureau of Investigation FBI standoff with Randy Weaver and Ruby Ridge.
Right. So 1992, the FBI and the ATF had a standoff with this devil named Randy Weaver in a place called Ruby Ridge. I think this was in Montana, Idaho, one of them states there, in just where it's trees and hills.
Right.
And this devil had a cabin or something up in there, but he was a member of one of them white supremacist groups, one of them Aryan type groups.
Right.
Right. Allegedly, the ATF, which is, as you know, the Bureau of Ammunition, Tobacco, Firearms, Ammunition, Tobacco, Firearms. Allegedly, they sent a mole in there, and he was down in this group with them.
Right.
And this mole allegedly sold Randy Weaver some illegal guns. And they came to him to say, well, listen, we're going to jam you for these illegal guns unless you inform on the whole group. He was supposed to go to court. No, he said he ain't informing. So they brought the gun charges. He ain't show up for court.
Right.
No, Felix, this is 1992. This is, you get gun charges to the ATF. You free to not show up. Meanwhile, your tail light is out. You losing your job because you in jail.
Right.
Until whenever. Khalif Browder killed himself because he was spent a year or 2 years in jail for a backpack. This devil bought illegal firearms that they know of. But they said they sold them. I think that's entrapment, but I ain't no lawyer. And he's free to not show up. Right. So of course, because it's a stain to the, you know, Bureau and the ATF, because they really was priming him to tell on what the white supremacists doing. They say they're going in for him because now this is a stain on them. So they go in for him, and of course, in typical oppressor European fashion, he let off behind them. He ain't buy them guns for show.
Right.
Them guns ain't to go on the wall. So there was a standoff between these agents and him. It was an 11-day standoff in 1992. I think it resulted in 2 FBI agents dead. His son was killed. He was shot, and his wife was killed also. His wife gets shot as they retreated back into the house. They thought the bullet hit somebody else. She's dead. And a lot of this was carried on the national news. So of course, you know, the rest of the groups, they incensed over it because his right to bear arms, and he had a right to be here. And the media, see if you can find anything on Ruby Ridge. The media, of course, is talking about, you know, extremists and their religious practices, of course, to get pretense and to get public support to go in there and fully crush that whole thing. When we're talking about this is a family. This ain't like 20 niggas who doing something. This is a devil and his family, right? But of course, they want him to turn on this group so they could go in there and do whatever they had to do for whatever reason. Whether it was a land grab or it's just they, you know, want to clean them out, whatever it is. But that's what they did to them, right? Now imagine they're doing this to their people. Imagine all the things they did to us. All them stories you hear from the Black Panthers, the civil rights movement, not civil rights movement, and the Black Power movement, the 20s and 30s, where brothers is trying to do things, sisters trying to do things. These stories have real credibility when you see what the ATF and FBI did to their own people. What you have?
Couple concerts, like you have. Extensive litigation followed Ruby Ridge. Initially, Randy Weaver and Harris were tried on a variety of federal criminal charges, including first-degree murder for the death of Deegan.
Right, so that's and this Deegan is one of the FBI agents. Right, so he was shot early on in the game because, of course, they go in there gone home. So initially, he survived. That Randy Weaver, he survived, and apparently he was a very pivotal person for this group. He survived. Initially, they charged him with first-degree murder and a ton of other firearms charges.
Right.
But because the thing had got political now, shit flipped.
Right.
And he ended up testifying in the Senate. He came down to DC and did a whole Senate hearing. And brother, the FBI and ATF was damn near almost dismantled over the whole shit because who authorized the shooting of these people? These was Americans on American soil. All of a sudden, it's Americans on American soil, but they do it to us.
Right.
So all this is happening all the way. Keep going.
In the successful defense, Weaver's attorney, Jerry Spence, made accusations of criminal wrongdoing against the agencies which were involved in the incident. In particular, the FBI, the United States, the USMS, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the United States Attorney's Office for Idaho.
Right.
Harris and Weaver were acquitted of all of the siege-related charges.
Of what?
Of all the siege-related charges.
They dropped the charges and all of it. Them niggas blow away 2 federal agents. They dropped all the charges. Anybody knows why they dropped the charges? You all remember the Bundy Ranch? You ever heard of the Bundy Ranch?
Waco?
Not Waco. Is it Bundy? I think it's Bundy. Google Bundy. Hold that article. Coming back to that, right? Okay. Y'all in 3 minutes, 8 o'clock, we're going to switch over to Chicago. We're going to be rocking tonight from 7 their time. If you want to continue classes, come to ISUPK DC, all right? ISUPK DC. But everybody on the online classes on YouTube, we're going to switch over to Chicago. Chi-Town, I believe Mount Park going to be rocking it up. Don't forget the lecture, Commander Johnny Hunter lecture. He's moved it over to the Chicago School, 9909 Roosevelt Road, Westchester, Illinois. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience, but General so it's fit to bring this thing home and close to everybody. The school, everybody knows, location, everybody knows it's easier to find because everybody knows where the school is. Come down to the lecture, 9909 Roosevelt Road, Westchester, Illinois. All right, what you got on?
How about to type it in for the or is it banner for the people to see? Where you said Westchester?
Westchester, Illinois.
Okay.
Shabbat.
Bundy standoff. Who's ready?
Give me the Bundy standoff. Come on.
Bundy standoff. In 2014, Bundy standoff was an armed confrontation between supporters of a cattle rancher, Clevin Bundy.
It was an armed standoff between what?